Welcome to Lesson 4.2, Daily Care Notes and Shift Documentation. Daily notes provide a record of what happened while you were caring for a client. A good daily note should help an authorized person who was not present understand the care provided, how the client responded, and whether anything unusual occurred. In this lesson, we will learn how to create daily notes that are clear, useful, professional, and accurate. A daily care note is a record of the services, observations, and important events that occurred during your shift. It should reflect the actual care you provided. Daily documentation may include assistance with activities of daily living, meals, mobility, companionship, transportation, medication reminders, and other services included in the client's care plan. It should also include important observations, refusals, or changes that occurred during your shift. Your daily documentation should connect to the client's care plan and the services you were assigned to provide. The care plan tells you what assistance the client is scheduled to receive. Your documentation then creates a record of what actually occurred. If a task was scheduled but could not be completed, your documentation should explain why. For example, if bathing assistance was scheduled but the client refused, simply leaving the bathing section blank may not provide enough information. Document the refusal and follow agency reporting procedures. Daily notes should provide an accurate picture of your shift. The information required may vary depending on the client's care plan and agency documentation system. Generally, you should document the services you provided, relevant observations, the client's response to care, and significant events. Do not add unnecessary personal information. Document information that is relevant to the client's care and your assigned responsibilities. Activities of daily living, or ADLs, are commonly documented during home care shifts. Instead of simply writing ADLs completed, provide the information required by the agency's documentation system. For example, indicate whether the client completed a task independently or required assistance. Your documentation should accurately reflect what you did. Never document that you provided hands-on assistance if the client completed the activity independently. Likewise, if you provided assistance, make sure that care is appropriately recorded. Meals and hydration can provide important information about a client's daily condition. When required, document what meal was prepared or served and approximately how much the client consumed. You may also need to document fluids offered or consumed. You do not need to guess exact amounts when you do not know them. If appropriate, use reasonable descriptions or measurements supported by the agency's documentation process. If a client refuses food or fluids or has a significant change in appetite, document what happened and report concerns according to agency procedures. Mobility documentation is especially important for clients who require assistance or are at risk for falls. Document the assistance you actually provided. If the client uses an approved walker, wheelchair, cane, or other mobility device, document according to the client's care plan and agency procedures. If you notice a change, such as the client suddenly requiring significantly more assistance than usual, document the observation and report the change. Non-medical home care involves more than physical assistance. Companionship and meaningful activities may be an important part of the client's care plan. If you participate in activities with the client, document them when required. Instead of writing only provided companionship, you might document that the client participated in conversation, completed a puzzle, listened to music, or took an approved walk. This provides a more useful picture of the client's day. Care partners must remain within their authorized role regarding medications. If your responsibility is to provide a medication reminder, document it as a reminder. Do not write that you administered medication if that is not what occurred or is outside your assigned role. If the client refuses a medication reminder-related task, reports a problem, or you observe a concern, follow agency procedures for documentation and notification. When writing a narrative daily note, chronological documentation can make the shift easier to understand. Start with the beginning of your shift and move through the major events in the order they occurred. You do not necessarily need to document every minute. Focus on relevant care, observations, and events. A clear sequence makes it easier for someone reviewing the record to understand what happened. Here is an example of a routine daily note. Notice that the note provides useful information without becoming unnecessarily long. It describes the client's general presentation, the assistance provided, food intake, activities, mobility, and the client's status at the end of the shift. It also avoids personal opinions and unnecessary details. Your actual documentation should always reflect what truly happened during your shift. Do not copy this example into a client's record unless those events actually occurred. Some shifts will involve events that require additional attention. A daily note is important, but documentation alone may not be enough. If a client falls, experiences an emergency, develops a significant change in condition, or there is another serious concern, follow agency reporting and emergency procedures immediately. Do not wait until the end of the shift to place urgent information in a daily note and assume someone will eventually read it. Report urgent concerns through the appropriate agency process. Then complete the required documentation. This is extremely important. Documenting a concern does not necessarily satisfy your responsibility to report it. Your supervisor may not be reviewing daily notes in real time. If something requires immediate or prompt notification, contact the appropriate person according to agency procedures. For significant situations, remember the sequence. Respond appropriately, report the concern, and document what occurred. Client refusals should be documented objectively. Avoid describing the client as difficult, stubborn, or uncooperative. State what was offered, what the client declined, what the client said or did, what action you took, and who was notified when notification is required. This respects the client's rights while creating a clear record of what occurred. Care partners should not diagnose clients. If something appears different, document what you can actually observe. In this example, the client reported feeling weak and required more walking assistance than usual. Those are specific observations. The note does not attempt to explain why the client felt weak. The observation is documented and the appropriate supervisor is notified. Be careful with repetitive or copied documentation. Even when clients have consistent routines, each daily note should accurately reflect what occurred during that particular shift. Do not copy another care partner's documentation. Do not automatically document every task on the care plan without confirming that the task was actually completed. Your documentation should reflect your own observations and the services you personally provided. Before ending your shift, review your documentation. Make sure required services have been accurately recorded. Confirm that refusals, significant observations, and required notifications have been documented. Check your clock in and clock out information according to agency procedures. If you notice an error, follow the proper correction process rather than entering false information. Whenever possible, complete documentation promptly while the details of the shift are still fresh. Here is a simple formula that can help you remember what belongs in a strong daily note. Care. What services did you provide? Response. How did the client respond to the care? Observation. What relevant information did you observe? Reporting. Did something happen that required notification, and if so, was the appropriate person notified? Not every note will require every category, but this formula can help you create documentation that is useful and complete. This example combines routine care with an important change. The note begins with the client's condition, documents ADLs and meal intake, describes activities, and then identifies a change later in the shift. Notice how the care partner documents exactly what the client said and what was observed. The care partner also documents the action taken and that the supervisor was notified. This creates a much clearer record than simply writing, "Client wasn't feeling well today." Daily notes are an important part of client care. Your documentation should accurately tell the story of your shift without opinions, assumptions, exaggerations, or missing information. Document the care you actually provided. Document how the client responded. Record important observations and changes. Report concerns when required. And never forget that writing something in a daily note does not replace immediate reporting when a situation requires action.